Hi friends, it's again time to share one of the reflections I have, these transpersonal reflections. Today it's from my home here, my lovely garden. It's one of the last days of summer, and fall is just starting very soon with the fall equinox. And a little bit of sadness and a little bit of expectations. So I want to share some thoughts about something, very close to my heart, or has become even closer in the last months. It's compassion. You know, we hear this word a lot, but what does it really mean? And how can it guide us in times like these? You know, sometimes times of challenges, personal challenges, and things that we feel like are world challenges. Now, when the world seems so divided, so uncertain. So for me, compassion starts not with others, but with ourselves. It starts with myself. You know, if I'm not compassionate with myself, so it's really difficult to be compassionate with others. So almost every human being carries some form of self-judgment. Don't we know this self-judgment? I'm practicing voice dialogue, where you work with this inner critic, this inner judge, saying, look at you, look at how you look, you should, okay, no, okay. Let's start this thing over because it was really not good. That's the that's the inner critic and the inner judge, which is on a different level. So we look at our bodies, our emotions, our minds, and our relationships. You know, our place in society and the place where we live, and we find endlessly things to criticize. Maybe we think we should be stronger, smarter, more successful, more spiritual. That's a big thing. More spiritual, more secure. But compassion for self means saying, yes, I am imperfect. Yes, I make mistakes. Yes, I have fears and shortcomings. And still, I am worthy of love. Yeah, I am. Actually, I am. Real compassion is not about perfection. It's about holding our imperfections with kindness, with compassion, with love. And there's another layer here. That's a very important layer I kind of discovered recently. That word never really said anything to me, but now it means a lot. And it's another layer of all that thing we need compassion for. It's uncertainty. What does it mean? Yeah, life itself is uncertain. We don't really know how things will unfold. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, or even fully why we're here. Not really fully. And compassion means being okay with not having all the answers. You know, if we would play, some people who play some computer games, they know how boring it would be to know all the answers, know where the bad guys are, where you can get the strongest potions and the strongest weapons, and find the biggest treasure. If we would know it in advance, we would maybe play the game once, but probably not more than a couple of times. It would be boring. So it's the same here. We're not certain. There are people who know many things, have experienced directly, but even they say, it's not completely certain. So uncertainty seems to be baked into this human life. And compassion helps us breathe into that uncertainty instead of fighting it. Breathe into it. Okay, I'm okay. And from there, we can start having compassion with others. It naturally extends to others. Right now, much of the world is caught in polarization. We just need to open the news and we hear about groups fighting each other. Half of one population, judging the others and feeling that they have no right to even to exist because they think differently. Groups of people that believe they have the absolute truth. These are the most dangerous people. I have the truth. I know. Ooh, run fast. They think they have the truth with a capital T, and some think, and if someone thinks differently, they are condemned and judged, sometimes even hated. And recently we've seen it, a couple of times. They even shot, boom, They're the same people who say, we can have guns and we should, exterminate the opposition. And then they end up being shot, I'm not thinking about anybody in particular, but it's so often the case that you actually really reap what you have sown. And so we see cycles of violence. One person harmed, then another harmed in revenge, and then another, and an endless cycle. But compassion interrupts this cycle. It asks, do I really know why this person acted as they did? Do I even fully understand why I act as I do? The truth is often we don't. We own our motives in a way that we think we're right, and we become righteous. righteous. So our own motives are sometimes a mystery, even to us, if we really think about our motives. It's worth, feeling around what motivates me. And you will see, it's not all that clear. So how can we be certain enough to judge others so harshly? Compassion opens a different path. It allows us to pause, to soften, to see beyond the labels and the judgments. And this links back to uncertainty. When people claim they are absolutely certain that they know the truth, that's often when things become most dangerous. That's when you have to run very fast away from these people. Certainty closes the door to learning. If you're certain about something, what do you need to learn? Nothing anymore. You are certain. It closes the door to learning, to really listening, and to growth. Growth is changing. It's being open to different scenarios, different possibilities. So compassion keeps us open. Compassion to ourselves, for ourselves, and compassion for others. It makes us humble. Another really important concept and a feeling of, humble, not in I'm small, I can't, No, really humble from the inner knowing, the inner strength, inner clarity, that you don't know, that you can't know it all. It allows us to say, I don't know everything, and that's okay. I can still love, I can still care, I can still be here. I actually can be here very much though. when I'm not saying, I know it all, you should act like I do, and then we can be friends, otherwise, get lost. No, that's not the way to do it. So the next level is compassion for humanity. Compassion is also needed on a larger scale for humanity as a whole. Yes, humanity has made mistakes. Yes, that's why we're here, because it's messy, because it's full of mistakes, and because we get challenged all the time. Imagine there wouldn't be any mistakes, there wouldn't be challenges. It's like the game we would get bored with. I'm not saying it's fun to see people suffering, to see wars happening. It's awful. Suffering is awful. And when you personally suffer, have pain, it's the worst thing you can wish to another. But unfortunately, very often it's during these times of crisis, during these times of pain, that we grow and change most, that things are apparently falling apart, but they're falling apart for new structures to emerge, and that's exactly what's happening in the world. Lots of awful things happen, the whole gunk, the whole garbage comes out, is becoming visible, and through becoming visible, we have a possibility to change it, to change our relationship to it, to change us, what it does to us. So wars, destruction, ecological damage, the loss of species, the suffering of countless beings, that's, in a way, that's the cycle of life. But, when you're caught into it, can't see it from such a high level, really, really. There you need also to have compassion, lots of compassion. So, but judgment, I think that's the opposite of compassion. So judgment is not the answers. These two are part of humanity's learning. Even judgment, even all this righteousness, when you come to this conclusion that it's garbage, that it's something we need to move away from, it's when you have experienced it, and you've suffered the consequences of it, or have done it yourself. So let's have compassion for all the mistakes of the world, all the mistakes that anybody has done, the biggest dictators, anything has. I don't condone anything, but I would hope everything has a meaning, and I'm quite sure about that. So the Earth herself has gone through many cycles, like ice ages, warm ages. And I'm not even sure that the warm age is coming now, because the warm age might be a precursor of the next ice age. Nobody talks about that, but that's another discussion. So there are many cycles: warm, cold, extinctions, renewals. So that's life. Life continues, life transforms, life renews itself. So compassion means holding humanity with patience. That's one of the things I need to learn most. Patience. Not easy. Patience. And then hold humanity with care, with hope, not condemnation. It doesn't help saying, look at these wars, look at these nations who do such awful things, and then we feel so much anger and hatred. I don't think that helps. It's better not, okay, sometimes when you need to go and manifest your opinion, people need to move, but not everybody needs to move. People are called to do that. But the biggest work, the biggest help you can do is find your own peace and be the light and the love and compassion where you are, and it has lots of power, and that power streams, goes from one to another, and that other, it's spreading, not like a disease. It's spreading exactly like a disease, but a good disease, the disease of love and understanding and compassion and hope and, trust in the intelligence of life. So let's take the large perspective. So finally, compassion becomes natural when we see that bigger picture. Many traditions speak of, let's say, the oversoul, a large being of which we are each a facet, like when you see that tree, that could be the oversoul, and all the branches, all the leaves, they are like facets of that oversoul, like souls, like we are, facets of that oversoul. And that oversoul itself is a facet of the one being from which we all come. So our human life is just one expression among many. Other lives may be unfolding in other times, in other ways, even in other worlds. And even in our world, there are so many different worlds, Lately I've seen a documentary about Mauritania, and it was amazing. The Sahara desert, the nomadic people, traveling hundreds of kilometers through the desert and being happy, feeling meaning in their life. It's a completely different world, completely different inner world, completely different everything. And it's in our world, and there are so many different worlds in our world. From a larger perspective, every mistake, every triumph, every pass, it's part of that big us, that oversoul, exploring, learning, experiencing. So when we remember that, compassion flows more easily. We see that even the painful parts of life are part of a greater unfolding. So to sum it up, what is compassion? Yeah, it is kindness towards ourselves, even in our imperfection. It is patience with others, even when we don't understand them. Even when they really bug us. And it is openness in the face of uncertainty. It is care for humanity and for the earth, even with all our mistakes. And it is trust, even the insect flowing here, And it is trust in the larger story of which we are all a part. So let's be compassionate. Let's be okay with not fully knowing. Let's relax into being who we are with love for ourselves. Let's relax. That's also one very important thing. Is really relax into just being yourself, into your own sense of being. You need to relax into it. You need to feel it. Otherwise, what you feel, you just it buzz around, and your thoughts, you're never really there. So let's relax into being who we are, with love for ourselves, for others, and for this great mystery that is the game of life. So we're all in it together. We're all in the same boat, and maybe there are many boats, but they're all on the same ocean. So thank you very much. Bye.